The words still echoed in my mind as I sat across from my family at Sunday dinner, the same table where I'd endured variations of this conversation for the past 6 years. My sister, Rachel, 35 and newly promoted to VP of Business Development at Harrison Pharmaceuticals, was in full form tonight. "I'm just saying, Diana, you could do so much more with your life." Rachel cut into her steak with the kind of precision that suggested she was cutting into something else entirely. "You have a master's degree from Georgetown, and you're working as an office assistant. Administrative coordinator," I corrected quietly, though I knew it wouldn't matter. "Same thing," my younger brother Marcus interjected. He was 29, 3 years younger than me, and worked as a corporate attorney. Entry-level clerical work. "No offense, D, but it's not exactly what we expected from you." I took a sip of water and said nothing. Silence was easier than explaining, and explaining had never worked anyway. "How much are they paying you for that?" Dad asked, his tone suggesting he already knew the answer wouldn't be satisfactory. He'd built his own consulting firm from the ground up and measured success primarily in billable hours and client retention rates. I named my official salary, modest but comfortable for my needs. The table went quiet in that particular way that meant everyone was calculating how far behind I was compared to their own earnings. "That's barely enough to live on in DC, Mom said, her voice heavy with concern. "Honey, are you managing okay? Do you need help with rent?" "I'm fine, Mom. I live within my means." "Within your means?" Rachel repeated, and I could hear the quotation marks around the phrase. "Diana, you live in a 1-bedroom apartment in Columbia Heights. You take the metro to work. You're 32 years old and living like you're still in grad school. Some people find fulfillment in simpler lifestyles," Aunt Jennifer offered, though even she sounded doubtful. "Fulfillment doesn't pay for retirement," Dad countered. "Diana, your brother and sister are building wealth, establishing themselves in their industries. You're making copies and answering phones." "I do a bit more than that," I said evenly. "Do you?" Marcus leaned forward. "Because from what you've told us, you work at some government agency doing administrative support, which is fine, I guess, if you're 23 and just starting out. But you're not. You should be managing people by now, not fetching coffee for them." "I don't fetch coffee," I said. "But you make it," Rachel pressed. "You said that yourself, that you sometimes make coffee in the office." "I do. When I want coffee, I make it. See? This is what I mean." She looked around the table for support. "She's so beaten down by this dead-end job she can't even see how she's being exploited. Diana, administrative assistants shouldn't be making coffee. That's not in your job description." "Actually," I said, "it's not in my job description to make coffee or not make it. I'm free to use the office kitchen like anyone else." "Which agency is it again?" Uncle Paul asked. "Maybe I know someone there. I could put in a word, see if there are any openings for something more senior." "Federal Trade Commission," I said. "But I'm happy where I am." "The FTC," Dad mused. "That's a regulatory agency, right? They must have positions for policy analysts, legal counsel, economists. Surely, with your background in public policy and economics, you could apply for something more substantial." "There are many positions," I agreed. "Then why aren't you applying for them?" Rachel demanded. "Why are you content being someone's assistant when you could be doing real work?" The question hung in the air. I'd learned over the years that my family had constructed a narrative about my life that made sense to them, the brilliant daughter who'd somehow lost her way, who'd settled for mediocrity, who needed rescuing from her own poor decisions. Trying to correct that narrative had proven impossible, so I'd stopped trying. "I'm satisfied with my current role," I said simply. "Satisfied?" Marcus echoed. "That's the problem right there. You should want more than satisfaction. You should want success, advancement, recognition." "Maybe she's afraid of responsibility," Rachel suggested, not unkindly. "Some people get to a certain level and then plateau because they are scared of taking on more challenging work." "That's not it," Mom protested, though she didn't sound entirely convinced. "Diana's always been capable. She just... I don't know. Something changed after grad school." Something had changed after grad school. I'd been recruited directly into the senior executive service, the group of top government leaders just below presidential appointees. I'd spent 3 years as a policy advisor before being nominated, vetted, and confirmed as one of 5 commissioners at the Federal Trade Commission. What had changed was that I now held one of the most powerful regulatory positions in the federal government, with authority over antitrust enforcement, consumer protection, and competition policy. But explaining that to my family had proven impossible, so I'd stopped trying. "I think Diana just has different priorities," Aunt Jennifer said diplomatically. "Not everyone wants the corporate climb." "She's not even on the climb," Rachel said. "She's standing at the bottom watching other people climb, and somehow convincing herself that this is fine." My phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. "The worst part is the wasted potential," Dad said. "Georgetown doesn't accept just anyone. You were top of your class. You had opportunities at consulting firms, think tanks, policy organizations, and you chose administrative work at a government agency." "I chose public service," I said. "Public service is noble," Marcus allowed. "But you can serve the public from positions of actual influence. As an assistant, what are you really contributing?" The phone buzzed again. And again. "Someone's trying to reach you," Mom noted. I pulled out my phone and glanced at the screen. 3 missed calls from the FTC's general counsel, 2 from the chairman's chief of staff, and 1 from Senator Williams' office. All marked urgent. "Work?" Rachel asked, her tone dripping with skepticism. "Probably someone needs you to schedule a meeting or order office supplies," Marcus joked. The glamorous life of a government administrator. I checked the messages quickly. The general counsel's text read, "Commissioner Chin, we have a situation with the Harrison Pharma merger review. Need your guidance immediately." My blood went cold. Harrison Pharmaceuticals. Rachel's company. The company whose proposed merger with MedTech Solutions had been under FTC review for the past 4 months. The company whose future depended on a decision that would be made by a 5-member commission, of which I was one voting member. "Diana." Mom's voice broke through my thoughts. "Is everything all right?" "I need to make a call," I said, standing. "Excuse me." "Now." Rachel protested. "We're in the middle of dinner. Whatever it is can wait." "It really can't," I said, already moving toward the other room. "This is exactly what I mean," I heard her say as I walked away. "She lets them walk all over her. It's Sunday dinner and they're calling her about office work. She needs to set boundaries." I closed the door to the study and called the general counsel back. "Michael," I said. "What's happening?" "Commissioner Chin, thank you for calling back. We have a problem with the Harrison MedTech merger. New evidence just came to light, potential anti-competitive practices. We need to schedule an emergency commission meeting to discuss whether to extend the review period or move to block the merger." My stomach dropped. What kind of evidence? Internal emails suggesting coordinated price-fixing agreements post-merger, potential market allocation schemes, and evidence of misleading information in the initial filing. It's serious, Diana. If half of this is accurate, the merger could substantially lessen competition in 3 major pharmaceutical markets. Send me everything. How quickly can we convene? Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m., if all commissioners are available. But, Commissioner, there's something else. Harrison Pharmaceuticals has retained Senator Williams to advocate for the merger. His office has been calling all evening. Williams doesn't get a vote on merger decisions, I said firmly. And you know our policy on congressional outreach during active investigations. I do, but he's persistent. He's saying there are jobs at stake, innovation that will be lost if the merger doesn't go through. He's asking for a meeting with you specifically before tomorrow's meeting. Tell his office that all commissioners are bound by ex-parte rules during active merger reviews, I said. Any communication about the merger must go through formal channels and be placed on the public record. Michael, make sure the full evidentiary record is ready for tomorrow. I want every commissioner to have complete access to all materials. Understood. I'll have everything prepared. And Michael, this stays confidential until the commission meeting. No leaks to the press. No advance warning to the parties. Standard procedure, of course, Commissioner. I ended the call and stood for a moment, staring at the bookshelf without really seeing it. Harrison Pharmaceuticals, Rachel's company. The one where she'd just been promoted. The one whose merger was now in jeopardy. I'd disclosed her employment months ago, and ethics had cleared me to participate. But now, with potentially damning evidence and billions on the line, that calculation felt different. I needed to recuse myself. It was the only ethical path forward, even though it meant letting the others decide without my input. Even though I'd spent weeks reviewing the case. Even though I suspected blocking the merger was the right call. I returned to the dining room, where dessert had been served in my absence. "Everything okay?" Mom asked. "There's an issue at work. I need to leave early." "On a Sunday?" Rachel shook her head. "Diana, this is what I mean about boundaries. You're letting them abuse your time." "It's urgent," I said simply. What could possibly be urgent for an administrative assistant? Marcus scoffed. "Did someone run out of sticky notes?" "It's a bit more complex than that," I said. "Let me guess," Rachel said. "Someone up the chain needs something prepared for Monday morning, and they're dumping it on you because they know you won't say no. You need to learn to push back." If only she knew that what someone up the chain needed was a decision about whether to block her company's flagship merger. If only she knew that the person making that decision was me. "I'll keep that in mind," I said. Before I could leave, Dad spoke up. "One of my clients is looking for a policy analyst. Real position, real salary, actual career growth potential. I could arrange an introduction." "That's very kind, but..." "Diana, please," Mom said. "Just take the meeting. What could it hurt?" "Your father's trying to help you," Rachel added. "The least you could do is be gracious about it." I looked at them, people who loved me, who worried for me, who'd spent 6 years convinced I was wasting my life because I wouldn't explain the truth. The truth that I was one of the most powerful regulators in the federal government. The truth that I oversaw a $300 million budget and a staff of thousands. The truth that my decisions shaped national markets. But telling them now, with Rachel's merger on my desk, felt impossible. "I appreciate the offer," I said, "but I'm genuinely happy in my current position." "Doing administrative work," Marcus said flatly. "Supporting important work," I corrected. Rachel sighed dramatically. "You're impossible to help, Diana. We're all trying to support you, and you're so defensive you can't even see it." "I'm not defensive. I'm just content." "Content with mediocrity," she said. "That's not the sister I remember. The Diana I knew was ambitious, driven, wanted to make a real difference in the world. Now you're just settling." The irony was almost painful. They thought I was settling, while I sat on one of the most consequential regulatory bodies in Washington. "I need to go," I said, standing. "Thank you for dinner, Mom." "You barely ate anything," she protested. "I'll grab something on the way home." As I gathered my things, I could hear them whispering, not quite quietly enough. "She's in denial," Rachel said. "She can't admit she made a mistake, so she's pretending everything is fine." "Maybe she's depressed," Marcus offered. "That would explain the lack of ambition." "We should stage an intervention," Dad said. "Help her see she's worth more than this." I left without saying goodbye to anyone else. The drive back to Columbia Heights gave me time to think through the ethics of tomorrow's meeting. By the time I got home, I'd made my decision. I drafted a formal recusal memo and sent it to the General Counsel and the FTC chairman. Given my sister's employment at Harrison Pharmaceuticals, and in light of the serious nature of the evidence now under review, I am recusing myself from all further proceedings related to the Harrison-U MedTech merger. This recusal is effective immediately and applies to all votes, deliberations, and informal discussions about the merger. The response came within minutes from the chairman. "Understood and appreciated. Diana, your ethical standards remain exemplary. We'll proceed with 4 commissioners tomorrow. Thank you for your continued service." That night, I couldn't sleep. Rachel's words echoed in my mind, her version of my life, her belief that I was small, unimportant, invisible. The gulf between what my family thought I did and what I actually did had never felt wider. Part of me wanted to call her, to warn her that her company was in serious trouble, that the merger she'd worked so hard to support was likely going to be blocked. But I couldn't. Commissioner or not, I was still bound by confidentiality. Using that information to help my sister would have violated everything I'd sworn to uphold. The next morning, I wasn't present when the commission voted, 3-1, to extend the review period and demand additional information from Harrison Pharmaceuticals. The move sent the company's stock tumbling 8%, throwing the merger into chaos. Rachel called that afternoon, her voice tight with stress. "Diana, did you hear? The FTC is putting our merger through hell. They're demanding all these additional documents, questioning everything, treating us like criminals. It's insane. This merger was supposed to close next month. Now we're looking at another 6 months of review minimum." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said carefully. "My entire bonus was tied to this deal closing on time. My promotion, my career, everything depended on this. And now some bureaucrats in Washington are playing power games with people's lives." I said nothing. There was nothing I could say. "You work at the FTC, right? You're there, in the building. What are people saying? Is there any way to fix this?" "Rachel, I'm an administrative coordinator. I don't have access to that kind of information." "But you must hear things. Overhear conversations. See documents. Diana, this is my career we're talking about. If you hear anything at all, about what the FTC is thinking or what we need to do, you have to tell me." "I can't do that," I said quietly. "Even if I did hear something, which I don't, it would be confidential government information. I can't share it." "Oh my God," she said, exasperated. "You're worried about the rules for your little administrative job? Diana, this is serious. This is my life. I need you to help me here." "I can't help you the way you're asking me to." "Because you won't break some minor confidentiality rule for your sister? Because following the rules is more important than family?" "Yes," I said. "That's exactly why." She hung up on me. Over the next 3 weeks, as the FTC investigation deepened and more evidence emerged of Harrison's anti-competitive practices, Rachel's calls became more desperate. The company's stock continued to fall. The merger looked increasingly doomed. And somehow, my family's opinion of me managed to sink even lower. "She won't even try to help," Rachel told our mother, loud enough for me to hear on a family call. "She works there. She could at least ask questions, but she's so obsessed with her pathetic little job that she won't do anything." "Maybe she doesn't have access to that information," Mom suggested weakly. "Then what good is she? What's the point of having a sister who works at the FTC if she can't even help when it matters?" 4 weeks after my recusal, the commission voted 4-0 to block the merger entirely. The evidence of illegal conduct was overwhelming. 2 Harrison executives were referred to the Department of Justice for potential criminal prosecution. The company's stock lost 30% of its value in a single day. Rachel lost her VP title in the restructuring that followed. She called me crying, asking how this could have happened, how the government could destroy honest businesses, how I could just stand by and watch while her career imploded. I told her I was sorry. Sorry that her company had engaged in illegal behavior. Sorry that her career had been built on a foundation of deceit. Sorry that she would never understand why I couldn't, and wouldn't, compromise my oath, even for family. The family dinner that Sunday was predictably awful. "I hope you're happy," Rachel said when I arrived. "Your precious government rules cost me everything." "The rules didn't cost you anything," I said quietly. "Harrison's illegal behavior did." "Oh, don't give me that sanctimonious crap. You worked there. You knew what was happening. You could have warned me, given me a heads up, something. But no, you had to protect your little administrative assistant job. You're 32, Diana. You're a nobody doing nothing. And apparently, you're fine with that." I looked around the table. Dad studied his plate. Mom looked like she might cry. Marcus tried to become invisible. No one defended me. No one suggested there might be things they didn't understand. "You're right," I said finally. "I am fine with my choices. And I'm sorry you lost your job, Rachel. But I couldn't have prevented it, and I wouldn't have even if I could. Because you're selfish, self-righteous, and completely useless." The words hung in the air. I could have told her the truth, that I hadn't just watched the case unfold, that I'd recused myself precisely to avoid bias, sacrificing months of work. I could have told her that I wasn't a low-level assistant, but one of the 5 most powerful antitrust regulators in the United States. But what would that accomplish? She'd already lost everything. Telling her now would only seem cruel, like rubbing salt in a wound. "I'm sorry you feel that way," I said instead. "Of course you are. That's all you ever say, I'm sorry. Never, let me help, or, let me make a difference. Just I'm sorry." I left before dessert. 3 months later. I sat in my corner office, not a desk in a shared space, but a room with my name etched on the door. Commissioner Diana Chin, Federal Trade Commission. "Commissioner Chin," my secretary buzzed, "you have a visitor. She says she's your sister. It's urgent." My stomach dropped. "Send her in." Rachel stepped inside, her eyes darting around the office. The large desk, the framed photos of me with presidents and cabinet members, the awards, the view of Pennsylvania Avenue. She stopped, staring at a photo of me being sworn in by the Chief Justice. "What is this?" she whispered. "My office." "Your office? Administrative coordinators don't have offices like this." "No," I agreed. "They don't." Her eyes went to the door. "The door says Commissioner. Commissioner Diana Chin." "Yes. You're one of 5 commissioners at the Federal Trade Commission," I finished. "Nominated by the President. Confirmed by the Senate. 6 years ago." Rachel sank into a chair, pale. "6 years? You've been a commissioner for 6 years?" "Yes. And you let us treat you like you were a failure? Like some disappointment who couldn't get her life together?" "You needed to believe that," I said. "And fighting it seemed pointless." "The merger," she said suddenly. "Harrison. You were involved in that decision." "I recused myself the moment I learned you worked there," I said evenly. "I didn't participate in any votes or deliberations. But yes, I would have, otherwise." "You recused yourself, to protect me." "I recused myself to maintain ethical standards and avoid any appearance of impropriety. It wasn't about protecting you. It was about doing my job correctly." She laughed bitterly. "All those times I told you to get ambition, to do something important, and you were literally shaping antitrust policy for the entire country." "Yes. Why didn't you tell us? Would you have believed me 6 years ago?" I asked. "Or would you have found a way to diminish it, to make it smaller than it was?" She flinched but didn't deny it. "And later," I continued, "it would have looked like bragging. I didn't need you to know I was successful, Rachel. I was too busy being successful." "That's harsh." "It's honest." She nodded slowly. "I was horrible to you. For years." "I know. I came here to apologize, before I even knew all this." "I accept it," I said simply. "Just like that." "Just like that. Don't you want to yell at me? Tell me how wrong I was. Would it change anything?" She laughed softly. "Even now, you're unnaturally calm. It's infuriating. 6 years of letting you think I was a failure taught me patience. I deserved that." "Yes," I said. "You did." We stood there for a moment, not quite forgiveness, not quite reconciliation, but the beginning of understanding. "Can we start over?" she asked finally. "Maybe," I said. "But not by pretending the past didn't happen. If we're going to have a relationship, it has to be based on who we actually are, not who you thought I was." She nodded. "That seems fair. Harsh, but fair." "I'm told I can be harsh." "Only when you're being honest," she said with a faint smile. When she reached the door, she paused. "Diana, thank you. For recusing yourself. For not using your position against me." "I didn't want to use it against you," I said. "I just wanted to do my job ethically. But you're welcome." After she left, I sat back at my desk and looked out over Pennsylvania Avenue. The world below moved on, ambition, perception, illusion. Somewhere out there, my family was about to learn a truth they'd ignored for 6 years. I didn't feel vindicated, just tired. Tired of the assumptions. Tired of the performance. Tired of the gap between who people think you are and who you actually are. My phone buzzed with a reminder about the next commission meeting, 3 mergers to review, 2 consumer protection cases, and a briefing on digital markets. The work continued, as it always did, steady, quiet, and unglamorous. Exactly how I liked it.